Well, hello everyone, my name is Swigo and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be beating Pokemon Heartgold and soulsilver with a new team every single gym. This challenge got suggested to me by Kiwi Dexter in my Discord. If you want to join my Discord, the link is in the description. It's full of great people and it's loads of fun. And if you could all drop a like, because this video took me so long to make, because every single time that I beat a gym I had to grind up a new team for the next one, so it was pretty damn time consuming. The rules are pretty simple. I can capture any Pokemon that I want to beat a certain gym with. Even if I capture it, I don't immediately have to use it. But once I've used that Pokemon, I have to use it in the next gym. And I can also not use any duplicates. So if I've already used a Magnemite and I want to use a Magneton, I can't do that. I will also not be playing with any HM Pokemon, but once I've captured a Pokemon and learned it in HM, let's say for a gym, I can reuse that Pokemon only for HM use or if I want to capture new Pokemon. The goal for this video was trying to build the most optimal team for every gym, but you're gonna see I'm running out of Pokemon by the 16th gym, so it was kinda hard. Now with the rules out of the way, let's get right into it. This is actually the first time I'll be playing Heartgold and soulsilver on the channel, and I really did enjoy it. The Pokemon that are walking behind you is really one of the best implementations that Pokemon has ever made. After naming our character, I head straight to the lab and I grab myself a Totodile because he's my favorite of the three starters here. I name it Thick because that's exactly what Fraligator is in Generation 3. I then went to Professor Pokemon's house, and when I returned there was this red-haired kid that wanted to fight me. After exchanging a little bit of tackles and scratches, I eventually won this battle and I got his trainer card and stole his money. Upon arriving in the lab, the police is trying to arrest me. But I'm blaming everything on this red-haired kid, and they asked me for his name and I said Big Boy, because he seemed like a big boy to me. Then we go to some cult's tower where we meet him again. He then escape ropes out of there, and the bald leader of the cult wants to see how strong I really am. I easily beat the old man up and I get his TM for Flash. I then walked into a building full of pigeons and they shat all over me, which was unpleasant to say the least. At the back of the gym there was this weird blue-haired guy who attacked me with his pigeons. But luckily I had a crocodile with me which loves to eat those. Literally. I just used Bite the whole fight until I won my first gym badge. And you know what happens when you get your first gym badge? You have to get rid of your starter Pokemon and catch a whole new team. I also forgot to explain this in the beginning, but after each gym I'm allowed one more Pokemon. So in the first gym, one Pokemon, second, two, third, three, and so on and so forth. And the next gym is bug type, so I got myself a Pidgey, which I named Bird Poo. And then I caught myself a Geodude, or should I say a Mewtwo. Then I went to the Pokeball maker's house, but he was too busy with some Team Rocket shenanigans and he broke his hip by falling into a well. I guess I have to do his work now. We saved the Slowpoke from Team Rocket, eat some Slowpoke tail, and it's all good and dandy. Until Big Boy arrives. His team got a big buff since last time that I fought him. But I did take into consideration that he has a Bayleaf, so that's why I have Pidgey. Sadly enough, little pigeon couldn't stand up to his Bayleaf, so I had to grind up a little bit until he evolved into a Pidgeotto. Then I fought him once again, and this time it went way smoother. His first Pokemon was a Ghastly, who I knocked unconscious with some rocks. Next was of course the Bayleaf, and this time Pidgeotto had this one with a few gusts because he just used Reflect and Poison Powder, and last up was Zubat, so I switched back into Geodude and took it out with a Rock Throw. After that, it's time to beat up the man himself, Bugsy, even though I still don't know if he really is a man. But his team was so easy because we had Geodude and Rock Throw. Scyther was an easy one-shot and the rest of his team easily went down to a few rocks to the face as well. Right now, this challenge doesn't seem so bad, but it gets harder, I promise. A new gym badge, that means that I have to say goodbye to my current team and catch a new one. So I know that Whitney is my next target, so I catch a Rattata Rattata so that I can use Cut to get to her. I name it the Rat. Probably should have named it Ratman. Then I also found an Onyx which has Screech and also resists all of Whitney's attacks, which is going to be very helpful. I of course give it the usual name, Hard Snake. Then after skipping through the forest, I found a Drowsy, which I'm going to be trading for the Machop in the Pokemon Mall because he's going to be crucial to take down Whitney. I also did a radio quiz, even though that I'm not that smart, it was very easy and I got myself a radio card, which meant that I could finally take on Whitney. The Pokemon that she leads off with is Clefairy, which my Machop easily takes down with a Karate Chop, but then Miltank comes out, so I switch into Onix to Screech it to lower Miltank's defense. Then I sacrificed Onix so that I could go into Machop and take it out in a single Karate Chop. And that was it. That was Whitney. I have no idea why people find her hard. I mean, if you just find a hard snake and a bodybuilder, you can easily take her down. She then does her usual crying scene, and after that she gives us the badge and a TM. I then headbutt some trees to get myself a Hoot Hoot for the next gym leader, which is going to be Morty. I name it Tooth because I don't know why. After then realizing that Hoot Hoot is utter trash, I capture myself an Abra to make it a little bit easier. After then struggling myself through about 20 Drowsies, I finally got him up to level 16, which meant that I got a Kadabra, which is able to take down Morty's gym with very much ease. But first I have to head up to the burnt tower to beat up Big Boy once again, because he's trying to interfere with some legendary dogs. His first Pokemon is a Ghastly, which was very easy to take down, just a single confusion, and then I learned Psybeam, which is even better. Zubat was an easy one-shot, and for Big Leaf I switched into Hoot Hoot, put it to sleep with Hypnosis, and then finished it off with Kadabra's Psybeam. Last up was Magnemite, and even though it gave us some trouble by paralyzing us and confusing us as well, 2 Psybeams got rid of it. We head down into the basement, scare away the dogs, and head up to Morty's gym. And I'm not going to lie, my Kadabra had less than half health at the beginning of this fight because of the other gym trainers, but because it's so fast and its special attack is so high and Psybeam is super effective as well, we literally one-shot his entire team. If you're having troubles with Morty, just get yourself a Kadabra. Sadly enough, now that we have our next badge, I have to say goodbye to my good buddy. With the next gym being fighting type, I went ahead and captured a Farfetch'd, which I named Chiding after the trade that you can do in Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. It has access to Swords Dance and Aerial Ace, which are 2 very good moves for the next gym. But first I had to get the HM for Serve by beating up a dancing Team Rocket member on a stage. I hope that was not an actor. Then I got a Krabby because I had to have something that could learn Surf. And I also got a Tentacruel, which is going to be for the next gym. I'm not going to use it now. And of course I have to name it a Cool Tent. As I arrived in the gym, I saw that this guy was drowning under a waterfall, so I saved him, but he got mad at me and wanted to fight. Okay, old man. He starts off with Primeape and I start off with my Farfetch'd. He decides to go for double team, so I set up a Swords Dance and then go for an Aerial Ace, which one-shots it. Next up was Poliwrath, who hit me so hard with his Surf that I thought that it was over, but we speed tied, and next turn I outsped him and took him out with an Aerial Ace. That's another gym badge, time to say goodbye to Krabby and Farfetch'd. But as we leave the gym, I get myself the HM for Fly, so I will be using Farfetch'd to fly. Sometimes. I then go back to the lighthouse, deliver the secret potion to Jasmine so that we can take her on in her gym. But before we do that, I have to capture a Diglett to take down the Magnemites, which you can catch in the round before the Safari Zone. After giving it an atrocious name, I went back to her gym and took her on. Our first Pokemon Magnemite gave us a little bit of trouble because we missed the magnitude, but after 2 of them we did finally take it out, and next up was Steelix, so I switched into a Cool Tent. After then surfing it twice, it easily went down because it just set up a sandstorm. Last up was our other Magnemite, and this time my Diglett took it down in just 2 magnitudes without taking any more damage because that would have been fatal. 9 minutes into the video and I've already got 6 gym badges, only 10 more to go. But first, let's get rid of this team and capture some new Pokemon. I got a goldfish, which I named Bert. I then got a Fluffy, which I named Sean. And I got a shiny Gyarados. Oh my god, I'm so lucky. I'm going to capture this and use it against the next gym leader. I then met up with Lance, who told me that there was a secret Team Rocket hideout under Mahogany Town. He almost killed a man with his Dragonite's Hyper Beam, and we cleared out the Team Rocket hideout. He might have carried me a little bit with his level 40 Dragonite, which is cheating by the way, but at the end of the run, Gyarados did pretty good. After beating up the Team Rocket admins, I went into the electricity room and got myself an Electrode, which I named Jet. I'm going to be using him for the next gym battle against Clair. And then I went to Price's gym. He starts off with a Seal, and I decided to start off with my Flaffy. After using Thunder Shock, he then bamboozled me by switching into his Piloswine and completely getting rid of my Thunder Shock. So then I went into my Goldfish Bird, which got one shot by a Blizzard, and then I switched into Gyarados. I used a Surf, which did bring him down into Orange Shell, but he had a Berry which healed him up, so the next Surf didn't quite take him out, and I took a lot of damage by Blizzard. But he healed up and 2 more Surfs took it down. Then Dugong came out, so I switched in Fluffy again, Thunder Shocked it twice, but then we got taken out by an Aurora Beam, so Gyarados had to do this one. He just used Rest and Sleep Talk for the rest of the time, so 3 more Dragon Rages took him out, and last up was Seal. So I just bit that Seal a few times and I won myself the 7th gym badge. Then I had heard that there were some strong Pokemon in the Safari Zone, so I went over there, caught myself a Misdreavus, which I named Dead, a Haunter, which I named Stinky, but I'm going to be keeping him for the Elite Four. Also got a Fearow, which I will be using in the Elite Four, which I named Ace, and then I got a Quagsire, which I named Swampert 2, because this is the closest that I'm going to get to a Swampert in this run. Quagsire will also be used in the Elite Four, and finally I got myself a Golduck, which I named Blue Duck, which I will be using for the gym fight with Clair. While I was walking under the city, a Team Rocket grunt came up to me and said that I had bad fashion sense, so he bought me a new outfit. I then went to the radio tower, beat up Petrol, and got myself the basement key to try and save the radio director. But first we have to beat up Big Boy once again, and this team of his is really buff this time. I didn't quite overthink the type advantages and disadvantages that I was going to have to get to beat him up. And this cost me a lot of time. I lost to him about 20 times easily. But because I took him on so much, my Pokemon just kept on leveling up, and eventually I did win the battle. His first Pokemon is Golbat, and I decided to lead with Golduck, and 2 Surfs easily take care of it. Next up is Meganium, so I switch into my Misdreavus and confuse it with my Confuse Ray. He snapped out twice from the first turn, so I had to put him in confusion 2 times more, and then finally I managed to take it out with 2 Sideways. Next was Sneasel, who I also took down with 2 Surfs, and then Magnemite was an easy one-shot, and last up was Haunter. I thought this thing was going to outspeed me, but I got lucky and I one-hit it with a Surf. We then go up to the director, but he tells me that I, a 10-year-old boy, should save his $1 million radio station. Yeah, of course, let kids run the world. You shouldn't call the cops or anything. Let me handle it. So we follow his instructions, we beat up all of the Team Rocket admins, including Archer, which is very easy honestly, their teams are so bad. And I mean, what are their intentions? We're going to send a signal around the world so that Giovanni will return to us. Yeah, that's not really happening, buddy. Seems like the kids may be the smart ones in this world. We then continue our journey by going through the ice path and capturing a Swinub, which I named Lil Piggy, and also a Jinx, which I named Yuh. I also had to help a Kimono Girl because she was stuck in the ice. And then I went straight to Claire's gym, which was a bit of a disappointment because my team really couldn't stand up to her, so I had to use Swinub and evolve it into Piloswine, which was quite a bit of work because Swinub sucks. Anyway, with Piloswine on the team, the battle just became a whole lot easier. Her first Pokemon, Gyarados, really isn't that much of a problem because we have Charge Beam on Electrode. Next up is a Dragonair, so I go into Piloswine, Ice Shard it twice and it's down. Kingdra, like always, is a pain in the ass, so I go into Electrode to set up a light screen because she only uses special moves. Then I switch into my Golduck to Screech it twice and lower its defense, strength it, which does a lot of damage, but then we got taken out by a Dragon Pulse. I knew that Ice Shard wasn't going to take it out from this range, so I had to go into Misdreavus, confuse it, and I got lucky with my Psyray roll and it took it out in a single hit. Last up was our second Dragonair, so I had to confuse it, hit it with a Psywave and then go down to a Fire Blast, and my Piloswine luckily finished it off with an Ice Shard. But Clair, like always, doesn't want to give us the gym badge, and I have to complete a stupid quiz with some old guys back in a cave. Clair then finally gives us our gym badge. We go back to Professor Elm's lab, grab the Master Ball, go back to the Kimono Girls, beat all of them up, and then go to the Seafoam Islands to capture Lugia. Then we see one of the best cutscenes ever made in a Pokemon game, in my opinion. And then it's time for us to capture Lugia. I don't want to waste my Master Ball on him because I'm gonna have to use that a little bit later on. So after soft resetting about 40 times, I eventually caught it in a Great Ball. I name it finally because it took me so long to capture it. Then we go to the Victory Road, we play through it, and at the end we have to fight Big Boy. I immediately get off on the wrong foot by starting off with Haunter against his Sneasel, so I switch in Quagsire, hit him with an Earthquake, but he's left with a little bit of HP. So he then switches in Meganium, and I also have to switch. So I go into Lugia and take out the Meganium very easily. Then he switched in his Sneasel, who I Hydro Pumped in the face, then Magneton came out, so I switched in Quagsire and I took him down with a Surf and an Earthquake. His next three Pokemon were Haunter, Kadabra, and Golbat, and my Haunter easily took all of them out with Shadow Balls. Now before I go into the Pokemon League, I have to capture another team member, which is going to be Ursaring. I name him Brother from the movie Brother Bear. And then I grinded my entire team up to level 45, which is pretty respectable to beat the Pokemon League with. My team now consists out of Quagsire, Fearow, Jinx, Haunter, Lugia, and Ursaring, which should be more than enough to take down the Pokemon League. The first person we have to fight is of course Will with his Psychic type, so I lead off with Haunter and Shadow Ball his first Pokemon Xatu, and he couldn't take it, so he just fainted right away. Next up was his Jinx, and that thing also got one shot. Slowbro is very special defensive, so he tanked one and devastated my Haunter with a Psychic. Luckily I still had Ursaring, who slashed that Slowbro into tiny little pieces. Exeggutor was also an easy 3-shot with a slash and 2 feint attacks because he set up a Reflect. And I got a critical hit on this last Xatu to take it out in a single hit, and next up is the Elite Four member Koga. I knew that his first Pokemon was going to be Ariados, so I start off with Ace, but he poisoned me with a Poison Jab, which did a lot of damage. Eventually I did take him out, but my Fearow was almost dead. Next up was Fortress, so I switched in Haunter, but he immediately switched out into Venomoth, which I confused with Confuse Ray and then took out with 2 Shadow Balls. Next up was Muk, who my Quagsire easily took care of with 2 Earthquakes. And next up was Fortress, so I didn't know what to do and I stayed in with Quagsire, but he had Protect and then used Swift, which took me out. So then I went into Ace, hit him with a few Aerial Aces, and then I eventually went down and Lugia had to finish it off with a Hydro Pump. Now last up was his Crobat, and I had to switch in Jinx and just punch it with some ice, and then I used Powder Snow a lot of times, but he healed up as well, which was very annoying. I didn't take him out with Jinx, so we went down and Brother had to take him down with a Slash, and next up was the easiest Elite Four member, Bruno. His first Pokemon is a Hitmontop, and I start off with Quagsire. I go for the Waterfall, but he uses Dig, which means that I'll miss. So next turn I go for another Waterfall, which doesn't quite do half, so I set up a Rain Dance, he digs again, and the next Waterfall takes it out. Next is Hitmonlee, but luckily the Rain Dance is still up, and Hitmonlee's defenses are non-existent, so a Waterfall finishes it off. Now his Machamp is a little bit too strong for my Quagsire because his Cross Chop hit really hard. So I switched in Fearow, went for an Aerial Ace, he healed up with his Berry, but a single Cross Chop took me out again. Then I had enough of it, so Lugia finished it off with an Aeroblast. Next was Onyx, who my Jinx easily took down with a Powder Snow, and last was Hitmonchan. So I decided to stay in, but Powder Snow barely did any damage and a Fire Punch was enough to take me out. So Ursaring came back out and slashed it to death. Now next up is Karen, who wants to talk to the manager. And she also specializes in Dark-type Pokemon. With her first Pokemon being Umbreon, which is a very bulky Pokemon, I thought that Quagsire was the best lead here, but after I tried to hit it with a Waterfall, she immediately switched into Vileplume. So then Jinx had to finish it off with 2 Powder Snows. Next was Umbreon, so I went into Haunter, Confuse Ray it, and also hit it with a Curse, and after that I had to switch in Ursaring. My Ursaring failed to land even a single hit on this thing, but luckily the Curse took it out. Now next up was Gengar, so I switched in Haunter and a Shadow Ball was luckily enough to take it out. And I managed to outspeed. His Murkrow came out and I thought Ursaring was the best man for the job, but he outsped and Pluck took me out. So then I tried with Jinx, but Powder Snow didn't take it out and Jinx got destroyed. So Quagsire had to finish it off with a critical Waterfall. Her last Pokemon was a Houndoom, who was no problem with Quagsire's Earthquake. And now it's finally time for the champion Lance, the Dragon Master. Because I didn't have any electric type moves for his first Pokemon Gyarados, I decided to lead with Lugia and take it out with 2 Aeroblasts. Now next up was his Aerodactyl, so I switched in Quagsire, set up a Rain Dance and killed it with a Waterfall. Then his big bad Dragonite came out, so I thought that Brother would be able to tank a hit, but his Outrage was too much. I then switched into Ace to hit it with a Fly, but then he also got taken out by an Outrage. Then I switched into Jink because he was confused, and 2 Powder Snows killed it because he hit himself in its confusion. Next was Charizard, so I went into Quagsire, but he wasn't able to deal with his Air Slash and went down very easily. Then I thought Haunter would have been able to do something, and he did hit a Shadow Ball, but a Shadow Claw took him out. Then I went into Lugia, hit it with a Hydro Pump, but it was left with a sliver of health and he healed up, and then I used Rain Dance and the Hydro Pump later, and Charizard is dead. His next Dragonite came out, I stayed in with Lugia, hit it with an Aeroblast and got taken out. Then Jinx had to finish it off with a Powder Snow, and his final Dragonite easily went down with 2 Powder Snows, and we won ourselves the champion battle, and we're the champion of the Johto and Kanto region. You might think that it's over now, but it really isn't. I still have 8 more badges to go, and I also have to beat up Red. And the same rules apply for these badges. But before I go to Kanto, I have to capture myself a Tauros because I know that that thing is pretty damn strong. I then got stuck on a boat with a little girl that wanted to play hide and seek, and I really didn't want to, so she got lost. Eventually she told her grandpa, and this got pretty awkward, so I jumped off the boat. And normally people go to Lieutenant Surge first, but I decided that he was a little bit too hard for my Tauros, so I went to Sabrina instead because her Pokemon have really low defense. The first Pokemon was an Espeon who always sets up a Calm Mind on the first turn, so I go for a payback and then hit it with a Trash so that she doesn't heal. Next was Mr. Mime, who set up a Light Screen, which is no problem because I'm not gonna be using any more special moves. And luckily 2 Thrashes was enough to take it out. And last was Alakazam, and the only thing I had to do was hit 2 Thrashes without hitting myself in confusion, and I managed to do that, and this was an easy gym battle. Time to get rid of Tauros and capture some new Pokemon. I knew that the next gym leader was going to be Misty, so I decided to capture myself a Bellsprout, name it Big Mouth, and immediately evolve it into a Weepinbell. And I was too lazy to look up where to find the Leaf Stone, so I'm just gonna keep it as a Weepinbell. With my new Weepinbell, I went to the power plant and found out that there was a machine part that has been stolen by a weird ass shady character that couldn't even talk English properly, just like me. I then went into Misty's gym, he bumped into me and he told me that I couldn't tell anyone that I met him, so I immediately called the cops. I then found him again on a bridge, beat him up, and he said bye bye a go-go. I got the machine part, brought it back to the thick-ass boy back at the power plant. Then I interrupted Misty's romantic scene with a boy that I've never seen before, and she challenged me to a gym battle. As I arrived, I immediately thought by myself, how is this Weepinbell going to take down her entire team? And I was right, I couldn't even take down her first Pokemon Golduck, so I had to have some backup. So I went looking around in the grass and I found a Meowth, which I captured and named. That's right. I knew that Persian was able to learn Nasty Plot together with Power Gem, which was going to be good against her team, and that being her Lapras. I tried again at various levels, but eventually, after my Persian hit level 60, I could take her out. First, I set up 3 Nasty Plots on her first Pokemon Golduck, and I go for a Power Gem, which takes it out in a single hit. Next up was Lapras, who couldn't take a Power Gem either. Starmie came out, and I really wasn't thinking because Power Gem probably would have taken it out, and I decided to go for Night Slash and get my Persian to die, which was very stupid. So my last hope was Big Mouth. I used Razor Leaf, Starmie was dead, but she also hit me with an Ice Beam. Last up was Quagsire, who luckily was very slow, so my Weeping Bell outsped and a single Razor Leaf took it out, and we got 2 gym badges in the Kanto region now. The next gym is going to be Ericus, which is grass type, so I prepare myself by getting a Vulpix and also a Grimer, which I evolve into a Muck. I named the Vulpix Mozilla from Mozilla Firefox and the Grimer Poo because he lives in sewers and smells like poo. Erika's first Pokemon is a Jumpluff, so I start off with Muck and kill it with a single Gunk Shot. Next up was Victreebel, so I had to switch into Vulpix and a single Fire Blast actually took it out because the sun was up. The Spaghetti Monster Tangela was also not a problem with a single Fire Blast, and last up was Blossom. And that thing took me down with a Solar Beam, so Muck had to come in and finish the battle with a Gunk Shot. The next gym that I was going to take on was the Poison Time gym with Jasmine, so I prepared myself by getting a Cubone in the rock tunnel. I then immediately evolved it into a Marowak and tried my shot at the gym. But yet again, this one Pokemon really wasn't enough at this level to be able to take down a whole gym, so I had to look for a new teammate. So I was looking in the grass and I found myself a Slugma, and I knew that Macargo was going to be able to take down a few members of her team. So I got that Slugma, named it Sugma, and evolved it into a Macargo. After then grinding up that Macargo, I decided to take a shot at a gym. The first Pokemon is Crobat, and I knew Ancient Power, which easily took it down with 2 hits. Next up was Weezing, so I decided to stay with Macargo because Marowak really didn't have anything to take down a Weezing. And I was right because 2 Lava Plumes later and the Weezing was dead. Next up was Ariados, and I knew that my Macargo was going to die, so I switched in Marowak and took it down with 2 Bonemerangs. Venomoth then came out and I got a lucky critical Boomerang which took it out in a single hit, and last up was Ariados, another one. And he went down just like the last one, a single Boomerang, and we have another badge on our belt, which means that we have to say goodbye to 2 more team members. I then got the Pokeflute feature on my radio, woke up the Snorlax and captured it, but I'm only going to be using him in the fight with Blue. I caught myself a Shelder, which I'm going to be using in Blaine's gym, and I also got a Chinchou, which I'm going to be using in Brock's gym. Brock's first Pokemon is a Graveler, which I can easily take out with a Surf. His Rhyhorn shared the same fate because it's the same typing. I knew that Discharge wasn't going to take out Kabutops in 1 hit, so I surfed it first and then hit it with a Discharge so that he wouldn't heal it up. Onix went down the same way as the last 2 rock and ground types, and last up was Omastar, Lord Helix himself, who couldn't withstand 2 discharges. I then went to surf in the pond at Mount Moon and I caught myself a Poliwag. Or do I say Polyswag? I immediately evolved him into Poliwhirl because I am going to be needing him against Blaine. I also caught myself a Tangela, which I'm going to be using against the fight with Blue. Then I went to the new cave where Blaine's gym is located because Cinnabar Island exploded, and his first Pokemon is Sugma. I of course started off by hitting it with an Hydro Pump because that thing is not gonna survive it. Magmar was also an easy 1 hit with Hydro Pump. Last up was Rapidash, and I decide to set up a Belly Drum. He hits me with a Flare Blitz, I'm left with 2 HP and a single Waterfall takes it out, and we have ourselves the next gym badge. Now before we can take on Blue, I first have to get myself a Rhyhorn so that I can defeat Lieutenant Surge. I named him OMG because I had to look 30 minutes for him in Victory Road. I then trained him up to become a Rhydon, and I took on Lieutenant Surge's gym. And you can probably guess how that went. I used Earthquake and he just died. None of his Pokemon could stand up to my Rhydon's Earthquake. Except for this electrode, because by that time I had run out of earthquakes because he kept on setting up double teams and I had to finish it off with a stone edge. Anyway, we now have 7 more gym badges and it's time for the final gym badge until we can defeat Red. And this is the team that I'm working with for now. I have a Snorlax, a Clefable, a Tangrowth, and also a Dugong. These were kinda the best things that I could find, so let's see how they can do. I knew that he would start off with an Exeggutor, so I started off with Snorlax and crunched it, but a Leaf Storm also did decent damage. Then on the second crunch he switched into his Machamp to tank it. And I knew that Snorlax wasn't going to be able to tank a hit, so I had to sack Clefable so that I can safely switch in Tangrowth. So I did that, hit it with a Power Whip. As he hit me with a Dynamic Punch, he then healed up and 2 more Power Whips took down the Machamp. Then his Arcanine came out, so I switched into Dugong and hit it with an Aqua Tail as he hit me with a very hard hitting Flare Blitz. On the second Aqua Tail he switched into Exeggutor, which tanked it of course. Luckily I was able to outspeed him and an Ice Beam was enough to take it out. Next up was Rhydon, so I went into Tangrowth. Used Mega Drain because I needed a little bit more health and it actually one-shots it. Arcanine was back and I knew that I had to go into Dugong, which I did, and an Aqua Tail took it out. Pidgeot then came out. I decided to stay in, but he outsped and a return took me out, so I went into my Snorlax, used Giga Impact, and a return did a lot of damage, but luckily my Snorlax had leftovers because 2 more returns took me down into 3 health, but a Giga Impact finished off the Pidgeot. And then the last Pokemon was Gyarados, so I decided to sack Snorlax because then my Tangrowth wouldn't be intimidated. And then I just used Power Whip twice to win my final gym badge. Now it's time to prep for Red. I go through Cerulean Cave, capture myself a Magneton and a Parasect over there, and I also get myself the Mewtwo. This is why I kept my Master Ball around. I also found a Golbat a little bit earlier, which I didn't show, but I will also be using that in the fight. I tried to take on Red at various levels, ranging from level 60 to 80, but I found out that it really wasn't possible at level 70. In Pokemon Gold and Crystal it will be a different story because his AI over there is way worse. But eventually I found my strategy and tried to take him down. His first Pokemon, like always, is a Pikachu, so I lead with my Geodude and take it down with a single Psychic. Next up was his beefy boy Snorlax, so I had to switch into Magneton. I hit it with a Discharge and a Zap Cannon, but it didn't take him out, so he had to heal up with a full Restore. Then I repeated that strategy by going for a Zap Cannon once again, and then he hit me with another Crunch, which almost took me down together with the hail damage. But then one more Zap Cannon and the Snorlax was out of here. Next up was Charizard, so I decided to sack my Magneton and switch into Mewtwo to take it down with a Rock Slide. For Venusaur I had to switch into Sabatman and hit it with a Fly, but it didn't take it out, so he used the full Restore and the Sludge Bomb on me. Then one more Fly and he used another Sludge Bomb, so I was almost dead, but one last Fly took down the Venusaur. Next up was Lapras, so I stayed in with my Crobat and used Confuse Ray. He hit himself. I also got off another bite before the hail damage took me out. After that I switched to Mewtwo and took it down with 2 more Psychics while getting hit with a Blizzard, which did a lot of damage. Now last up was Blastoise and I used Psychic. It only did half HP. He used Blizzard. I was left with 13, the hail damage brought me down to 4, and one more Psychic killed the Blastoise, and we managed to defeat Red. Thank you so much for suggesting this challenge because this was a load of fun to make, very different to what I normally do, actually making different teams and not always playing with the same types. I could have probably optimized this run way easier if I just looked up Pokemon spawns and stuff, but I just wanted to go with the flow and see what I got. And honestly, I was pretty happy with it. I would definitely recommend this challenge, but if you're gonna do it, you're probably gonna have to need a lot of time because there's a lot of grinding involved. I mostly grinded up my Pokemon in Victory Road and also in the Pokemon League because those just give good XP. Now I want to thank my Patreon supporters Miki Googla and Benatril. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I also want to thank you guys for watching. And as always people, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe and share this video with your friends. I'm Zwigo and I'll see you guys next time.